3, 2, 1. Welcome, guys, to the You Are Here podcast. This is episode 23. I gotta loosen me up.
Loosen up, bro.
Guys, you can find the podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Podbean, YouTube with the video, Castbox, Earworm. We made that up.
Trademark.
www.youareherepodcast.co. We could not afford the M. Guys, thank you so much for tuning in today. Today, every week I say is a special week. Because no dig at any other guests, but we have another guest on today, and it is a great honor for me to introduce Tobin Joseph from Temple Kinesis. Where else can people find you? You have also the Art of Flying podcast.
Yep, the Art of Flying podcast, wherever you can find podcasts. At Flying Tobin on Instagram, Twitter, things like that. Tobin Osusky, Osusky on YouTube. And please subscribe. Thank you. We got some cool stuff on there. And Facebook, it's Tobin Osusky, Osusky. My private account is Tobin Joseph. You can try me there. That's where he got my name and how he knows me, and most people know me. But I probably won't add you. You could just follow me. But follow me on the public accounts, and you'll see a lot of cool stuff.
Awesome.
Before we get into things, because we're going to talk, I bet, a lot about some deep things, some great things. And we usually talk about a lot of deep things. Oh, yeah, we got the 23 right there.
23's right there, bro.
There.
Look at
that. We got our board of like our influences and like.
And it's funny. Look, it's also right here.
There you go.
Oh wow,
that's so weird. Meant to be, or something's up. There's an energy in the room.
Well, I want to start with.
Yeah.
So the way I know Toby here.
Yeah, please tell me.
I used to play soccer for I'm gonna say like 12, 13 years of my life.
Yeah.
And it was an everyday. It was my passion, my love, and I want to do it every day and for the rest of my life. And things obviously changed a little bit, but I met Toby in I think it was freshman year. I started freshman year on the freshman team, and Tobin came in as our trainer, conditioning and stuff.
For the whole team.
Yeah, for all the teams.
Got you.
And I remember I hated it so much, but a lot of the things that you taught me like were a lot of things I kind of been learning from my parents too, with like discipline and how discipline is so important in every aspect of life, but especially in sports too, and competitiveness and stuff like that, and trying to like get better in yourself. And I just remember over the years and years I like grew to like love Tobin so much with all the like learning and everything. You learn because you know so much. You look so calm, but you have so much in your mind and you have so much to tell people, and you've been doing that, and it's so like inspiring like to see, you know, when I'm just like, I work every day now, and you know what I mean? Like I haven't been doing like everything I want to do right now. But there's like reasons to that and everything. And we talk about it a lot on the podcast, but whenever I see something that you post or something where I see you like in your element and helping people and stuff, it really brings me up, you know, today. It gives me positive
Grateful.
feedback.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you for saying that. I'm glad it helps your day.
For sure. How's your week been, man?
The week's been very good. Yeah. I mean, it's just starting. It's a Monday. But today was a great day. I was at work. I do work with a nonprofit now. That
we want to get into all that too. If you want to push anything you have. Because I saw you doing stuff with like people, I don't know every aspect, but I saw you with the last guest you had. Forgetting
Billy Keenan.
Billy Keenan.
Yep.
Yeah. Go into that
so he's a spinal cord injury survivor.
Yes.
He suffered a broken neck. Severe broken neck in a surfing accident many years ago, and lived quite the prestigious and accomplished life up until that, and now since has become a motivational speaker as a quadriplegic. So trapped to a wheelchair, he has to blow himself around with a tube and on this kind of push-pull system that they use, and hitting a head clicker basically to shuffle through almost like a little laptop computer that navigates the chair and everything, and a lot of his apparatus. So yeah, I work with him at this nonprofit called Push to Walk, or named Push to Walk, that specializes in rehabbing spinal cord injuries, traumatic brain injuries, strokes, people with cerebral palsy or multiple sclerosis. I can't even say it. Imagine these people living with it, right?
Yeah, exactly.
And things like that. So any type of real traumatic incident or ailment that doesn't allow people to walk normally, and that's why it's called push to walk, because we get them literally from wheelchair to on their feet again. Wow, and that's what we do there.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
And that's where I was today. And then I had a few private clients over at a basketball court because, like I said earlier, we move around based on the weather. I have a few spaces I'm partnered with, which we'll get into later. But today we were at the local basketball court, and it was beautiful out. So
you've been playing ball for a long time?
I have, not as long as most people. I was a soccer player growing up. That's all I really knew because it was my father's sport. Oh, okay. That was it. And my mother was a swimmer diver, so and we grew up in a town full of lakes, so I always swam, but never competitively. And then at a lake one summer, it was Erskine Lake, Main Beach Court. I think it was 6th grade summer going into 7th grade. I had only played a little recreation basketball. I still shot with 2 hands. I was terrible.
Right.
And I was barefoot, 11 years old, and the only way you could ever touch a ball in between games was as people were shooting, you would have to get a rebound. Right. Yep. It was all like 18-year-olds and stuff there. So I'm just watching, I'm timing it out. And a ball's bouncing. I jump up and I grab the ball, and everybody stops and steps away from me for a second. I'm like, what did I do? Did I do something wrong? Did I steal somebody's ball? Am I going to get in a fight right now? Did I do something wrong? And they were like, kid, how'd you just do that? And I was like, what? And they were like, your hands were just up at the rim. Oh. And that's where the Flying Tobin originates. Gotcha. Is that I could just float on air, and it didn't make sense. And they were like, "Did you play basketball?" And somebody yelled out from the back, "Nah, he's a soccer player." and they were like, "You need to play basketball." And one of the guys that was there was the son of the local CYO coach, the Catholic Youth Organization basketball team, but I wasn't Catholic. And they were like, "You got to play for St. Catherine's, the local Catholic school team," which was 7th and 8th grade, the team I was going to be able to be on. And I wound up trying out for them, and they were like, "Kid, you really suck at shooting. We got to figure this out." I was accurate, but it was a 2-hand shot, and I had no game IQ yet. And then I went to this Camp Eastern Invitational. I somehow got in with all future NBA players. Wow. Went there the summer of 7th grade to 8th grade, and again the year after. And I spent time in clinics. I was disciplined. I was always focused. So I went to shooting clinics with the best shooting coaches in the world, NBA guys, and just mastered it. So by the time I was in high school, I was kind of JV varsity right away. Yeah. And then by sophomore, junior year, I was second or third coming off the bench, and then starting by junior year. Right. And I could just fly the dunking thing. So
Flying Tobin.
Yeah. So I like to play.
As long as I remembered you, you're just so athletic, and you know so much about it too. And when you were talking about Billy Aquino, right? About his injury and everything, you also have another thing I know you from is I did a documentary of you. It was for a school project, but talking about your story and how you kind of were at a place where you kind of were at a similar place to Billy, where he was almost, people didn't expect you to survive, or people didn't expect that you were gonna be able to walk again or move or use limbs again, or
for sure.
Do you want to go into maybe how that story? And
I mean, to get to the point, I guess. I was a survivor of a traumatic car accident, or a catastrophic car accident. I was in the back seat of a vehicle that flipped about 10 times, going 90 miles, 100 miles an hour. And I sustained injuries such as, but not limited to, about 10 fractures in cervical vertebrae, C6 and C7, another 7-8 fractures in L4, L5, which is lower back. I shattered my tailbone, my coccyx, dislocated shoulder. I had 500 plus stitches in my head alone. I was scalped. So all of the skin and flesh on my head was torn off of my skull and had to be sewn back on. I lost an ear, but that's back on now. I had a hole in my face the size of a quarter. I almost lost my right eye. What else? 3rd-degree burns on 80% of my body from the gasoline, which I also swallowed. So I was like bubbling and peeling for weeks upon weeks after that. What else was going on then? Yeah, that's most of it.
Yeah.
I think I just drew quite a gruesome picture.
Yeah.
But the point is that I somehow miraculously healed on the cellular level back up to the macro level, and I don't really have scars. I am more adept and athletic than I ever was before. I can do gymnastics now. I'm quite proficient in kung fu and things like that. So it's been a very interesting journey, and I work with these people like Billy and perhaps give them the first view or vision of what they never thought was possible and what nobody else in their life thought was possible. Sure. And people, when we go through things like this, the people around us just want us to be safe. And I guess risking what I risked to get back to this point is not necessarily considered safe, but it was all I could think of at 18 years old. Like, I wasn't going to sit back and let life just kill me slowly and miserably, which is what they kind of trying to throw on you. In the way modern medicine works, that's what they do, is they don't want to tell you can be cured and then let you down at some point when it can't happen. They'd rather say, I don't know, the chances are minimal. And then when you're cured or when you heal yourself, they're like, it's a miracle. And I knew you could do it type thing. And they could take credit without taking responsibility in a sense. So every doctor I saw was just telling me, no, you can't do this. No, you can't do this. And I had traumatic brain injury too, so maybe I couldn't see things logically, and I was just like, that's not your job though. Like, your job is to fix, heal, and show people what they can do, and all you've done in this entire meeting is tell me what I can't do from now on, and I don't understand. That doesn't make any sense. So then I just went and figured out what I could do and just was checking things off lists, and and eventually that got crazier and crazier.
I mean, you said miraculous. I just met you. And I would not know that you went through that kind of trauma. I'd have no idea. And that's fantastic. It's a miracle. That's a miracle to me, because that's so many injuries, like traumatic injuries. And the way you come in, you're a super athletic dude. It just, you don't see scars, you don't see anything. It seems like you just recovered. That's incredible. But I can tell you did some outside the box things that you're saying that the doctors told you not to do. You stepped outside.
I mean, just getting back into sport and going right to school and forcing the body to heal itself and engage.
Wow, man.
Another thing I get from that is when you're saying how doctors were telling you like things you couldn't do. My great grandma passed away about 2 years ago. My brother's probably gonna call me out for like the exact day.
Stop calling him out, Sebastian.
But she passed away not too long ago, and I remember being in that hospital room and all I would hear were like, she's critical, she can't, make like a lot of negative things like that. And it's crazy to me that when you go in such a critical condition and state, they're telling you the negative part of everything instead of offering, like, this is something you can do. You know what I mean? Do this every, even I feel like
you have no time
that,
left. Why don't you do things that you can do,
even
or
if it's
know
like
things that
walking
you can
a little
do?
bit, you know what I mean? If you keep doing it, maybe you'll gain back the muscle and get healthy or something. It's just kind of crazy to me to hear. When you go in there in such a negative state, to keep hearing negative stuff.
I think the thing that freaks me out about modern medicine is most of the time the people in my life, like family and friends, it's always if something terrible happens or a disease or an accident, it's here's a bunch of medicine, take this, rest, and you're going to take that forever now. And it's like, well, wait a second. There's other ways of going about this. I know if I do my research, I might be able to find a new way of doing this that's not going to get me addicted to something or have me do something that slowly withers away the quality of my life. Instead, I want to try something that may be a bit different than what you're telling me and maybe a bit scarier. It's going to take more effort. But their first go-to that I've experienced is I hurt my back playing basketball last year.
I mean, look at all kids now, all addicted to prescription.
That's what I'm saying. I hurt my back. It's the first time I ever hurt my spine playing basketball. It was like a freak injury. And I never felt it before. I couldn't get out of bed. I couldn't do anything. And the first thing the doctor gave me, was like Percocets. And I was like, whoa. Like, I don't want to take these. I don't want these, but I got prescribed them like this. And I'm like,
it's almost automatic. It's automatic. You know?
Well, there's a big kickback.
Oh, yeah.
Apparently, the executives from all of those pharmaceutical companies will actually take doctors to resorts in the Caribbean, and they'll pay for like a week trip, and they just pay for all of this stuff to be there. Anything that they want, like a celebrity going to the Grammys.
Yeah.
They get all this free stuff. They get all this treatment, these massages, this and that, whatever they want. And the executives just cover it. They send them home. They're like, here's a new car, this and that, and just make sure you sell our stuff plenty.
Yeah.
Because they're making billions. The doctors are making extra millions off of it every year because they're getting a commission, just like if you sold Coca-Cola in a deli. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Every once a year, that Coca-Cola guy is going to come. That delivery guy is going to give you a bottle of vodka. He's going to give you a gift certificate to a restaurant. He knows it's fancy. He's going to say thank you for your business. Pharmaceutical execs do the same thing, but it's on a scale higher.
Right.
And it's sick. And it's like the only way to break that system is to teach people to heal themselves because it's not a financial thing. Once you give somebody the ability and the few very easy techniques like proper nutrition, physical exercise, breathing, meditation, you can heal yourself. Like, you don't need any medications. Medications are all derived from some type of natural element, some type of herb that we know benefits whatever ailment that you're suffering. So figure out the root herb that it comes from. Take that in your daily diet. Put together a daily juice that gives you everything for your physical ailments or your at-risk genetic predispositions. And eliminate the need for a doctor altogether. Hydrate plenty. Make sure you're taking an hour a day to be creative and get that part of your mind and heart going.
Yeah.
And live life. Like, get outside, get in nature, move. And you don't need any doctor ever.
Wow.
You know?
That sounds good to me. That sounds really good to me.
And you have something serious happen. You have a broken leg, that the bone's sticking out. Yes, then you need a doctor to repair that and fix that. But heal yourself after. Don't take the opiate. Take something natural and cure the injury, not mask the feelings and reactions to the injury itself.
Do you think that goes side by side with like anxiety and depression and things of that nature? Or is that just something that... Because I know a lot of people super close to me that deal with that. And it's very easy for me to say, oh, why don't you just... outside.
All of those things will help that. If there is a chemical issue going on, it probably stems from a lack of those things in the past. So you may need temporary medication to get you on track, but then you have to get those things back regulated so that your body can find homeostasis again. But absolutely, depression is completely connected to a lack of sunlight.
I feel the same.
We know that. It's a lack of hydration, a lack of proper nutrition. Your body's not getting the nutrients. It starts to eat itself away. And then your mind starts to recognize, I'm not healthy. This is not comfortable. And what else is anxiety and depression? Is like, things are not right. I don't like this right now.
Your body's disagreeing with what you're doing.
That's it. And so when you get those things back on track, you'll be okay. If you're going through a depressive fit and you think you're going to kill yourself and you think medication's going to stop that,
that's what you do.
Take the medication. But don't get on the medication so much that you're a zombie and people can't have coherent conversations with you.
Yeah. I agree, man. I agree.
It's very key what you said, masking the feeling.
The masking of the feelings.
Yes, an absolute reaction. I've been through so much physical pain that I know anytime we're uncomfortable in any aspect of life, it's our emotional reaction to things that are stressing us out. Because I was in a point where no amount of painkillers were going to help me stop feeling that amount and that degree of pain. And there are certain things on this planet, like Billy's almost always in a state like that. A woman giving birth, like, doesn't matter what medications you might have given her, like she's going to be screaming, crying, bleeding, and not having a fun time. And there are certain aspects of life where you just can't emotionally react to it, and you become so aware that so many times we're like, that hurts. That's not a physical interpretation. That's an emotional reaction to a physical stimulus.
Got you.
That goes back all the way to when we were kids and we fell and we scraped our knee and we saw blood the first time and everybody ran over and coddled us and we were like, and we started crying because we knew it would get us attention. And then we associated feeling pain with almost a subconscious way or an unconscious way to seek attention. What if you were in the wilds? knowing nobody was not around for dozens of miles, would you still react the same way if there was a group of people at a party?
Surely not.
Yeah. So what is depression when you're out in the, jungle all alone? Like there's no time for that shit.
Yeah.
And I'm sorry to say this, and I know a lot of people that suffer this, and we've all been through it to different degrees in our own lives, but like, you ain't got no time for that, man. Consider this like a jungle, and like people are out to get you like a lion or a jaguar hunting in the woods. Like you're no different than any other monkey out here. Yeah. And you will get eaten if you focus too much time on that and let it control your life. Right. And then on the flip side is anxiety by definition is too much energy to deal with. Okay. Right? I'm anxious. I don't know what I'm doing. Dude, you have a superpower. Just channel it. Right. Focus on something. Channel all that energy. You have extra energy. Somebody put rocket fuel in your vehicle instead of your regular fuel. Like, drive your car fast. Yeah. Like, do something cool with it. Like, set a record. I like that. Channel it. Write something. Do something. Dude. Record your music. Whatever it is. Yeah. But and depression is a springboard, right? Think about depression. It's I got nothing. My back's against the wall. Like, fuck the world, kind of. Pardon my language. I hope we can curse on this because it's too late. Everything sucks. Everybody's against me. Dude, what better place to be than no cushion and no comfort? When you can turn that around and just be like, fine, I'm going to do what I need to do in this world to create a life for myself. That's the most powerful thing that a human can become, is the creator. Yeah. The creator. And that comes from that dark place, that deep place of nothingness, because then everything is in front of you. Right. If you just turn around. Right. Dude. It's a very powerful place when you can transform it.
Yeah. It's like, it's good inspiration, especially for someone feeling in that place. Yeah, and for sure. That's one thing I got from the podcast too, is I think you said it, you said that what you're doing, you're inspiring living. And I feel like that's so powerful to say, because especially when you were in such a critical state, for you to turn that around and want to inspire other people to live, because you did too, and anyone can do it for sure, wherever you are. Was there like a certain, like, I don't know if you can remember, like a certain like specific thing about back then that made you want to be like, when you heard that doctor say like you're not going to be able to come back, or maybe you're not going to be able to walk, or whatever, your eye or something like that. Was there anything that made you like really want to just be like, you know what, fuck that, I can't be that, and just like go on to what you're doing now?
Yeah, it was probably that conversation where right before I went to college. So the accident was June 24th. This was probably late July that I saw this doctor. He was an orthopedic surgeon who was consulting on my neck and everything and the fractures. And he was like, so what's the plan? And I'm like, I'm going to preseason for soccer August 13th. He was like, what? I'm like, yeah. He's like, you can't do that. And I was like, I don't understand what you're saying. I was like, I'm doing it. Like, nothing you say is going to stop me from doing it. He was like, no, like, you can't play soccer again. Like, that's not possible. And I'm like, get the fuck out of here. Like, if you tell me, and I said this out loud, I said, if you tell me that right now, and that's the last thing you're going to say, that's your professional opinion, we have a soccer ball in the car. I'm going to go to your parking lot, punt it up as high as I can, and stand underneath it and head it. And if it doesn't kill me, I'm going to know you're an idiot and you were wrong. If it does kill me, you're going to have to deal with a dead kid in your parking lot and explain that to the police. And he was like, kid, you're crazy. And I was like, no, you're crazy for telling an 18-year-old that they can no longer live for the rest of their life. I go, I can't imagine how many people's lives you've ruined knowingly or unknowingly by saying stupid ass shit like that. And my mother was like, stop, Toby, like, what are you saying? Yeah. And I was like, no, he's a piece of garbage human being that ruins lives for a living, and however he thinks he can justify it, that's on him, and he has to figure out a way to sleep. But I'm going to preseason. If he's not going to consult me properly, we're going to go find a doctor that knows what the fuck they're talking about, and this idiot will go down in history as the biggest moron ever when I write a book and it becomes a movie one day. And they were like, he was like, what would be reasonable? I said, what would be reasonable is you give me a date to work for, to heal these fractures and to get back on the soccer field. And he said, when are you coming home next? And I said, Thanksgiving, we usually come home for like Thanksgiving break or whatever. I was like, I don't know if I'll be coming home between then because the season, we got games every weekend. I don't know how it's going to go. And I was like, it's my first semester at college. So we scheduled an appointment for, I think, that Friday after Thanksgiving. Get home. And I worked, for months with athletic trainers, and I did all the field stuff. Just when they were scrimmaging, I couldn't play. The rest of the time, I had like the quarterback jersey on. Nobody could hit me, even if it was drills and stuff. But I would still get conditioning. I would get the work in, and then I would go for an hour or two every day with the athletic training staff, and they would do strict neck rehab stuff and things that I thought my head was going to snap off my shoulders, but it got me back to an extraordinary shape. Yeah. And then November comes, we go back to his office. This literally happened, and it's going to sound like a TV show, but there's people that will validate this. And this doctor would validate it if he got over being an egocentric, full of shit, like physician, like a lot of them are, because they make so much money and off of nonsense. Anyway, we're in his office. He comes back with the scans. I got an MRI or whatever, get the scans. He puts them up on a screen like this, because that's what you look at through. And he's like looking, he's turning them over, he's looking, he leaves the room, he comes back, he's looking, he's asking the nurse stuff. He leaves the room again, brings another doctor in, he's looking, he goes, what do you see here? And the doctor's like, nothing, it's a healthy neck. He goes, looks like maybe there's a little kind of microfracture over there. And he's like, I know, right? And he's like, why? He's like 4 or 5 months ago, this kid had like 15 fractures between 4 vertebrae. He was like, that's impossible. And they're like, these are his scans. Like, I just checked with the nurse again.
Wolverine.
And I said, yeah. Wolverine, and that's what we found out. But, yeah. And I said, am I cleared to play? He goes, sure. Yeah. Wow. I can't believe it. But, and they told me originally 18 months, they said originally it was going to take. And it took me from, July, there was no way he was clearing me, to November.
And you played?
I wound up playing that spring, yeah. Whoa. I was medically redshirted for the fall season, played in the spring a bit, and then I played, I think, 2 games my sophomore year, played a lot in the spring, a little bit my junior year, and I was done after junior year. Wow. So, yeah.
Wow, man. That is so inspirational, dude. And miraculous. What a recovery, dude.
Yeah.
That is insane.
Quite an experience.
Yeah. I've never met anyone that's, like, recovered from something that terrible.
You never know.
No, you don't. Yeah. You don't. Fuck, I don't even know what to say to that. That's crazy.
And you said Wolverine. What's funny is in my blood test now, you can see why that healing process, I guess, happened. I don't know if this was something I was born with and was genetically always there, or it was something that got released because it needed to be released at the time, or activated, we'll say. But my hemoglobin, which is a protein that helps deliver oxygen to cells through the bloodstream, is like 5 times higher than the average human.
Wow.
Whoa.
So there's definitely some like natural chemistry that facilitated the healing. It doesn't make sense altogether as to why the accident itself didn't break me and kill me.
Right.
But the healing aspect can somewhat be explained now scientifically.
Wow.
Yeah.
You're like the pioneer in that.
Do you... This is crazy. It's making me think about like...
But don't say it, because now vampires are going to come after
you. You get a vial of your blood before you leave. No, I'm just kidding. No, dude, do you believe like that? I listened. So I went back today. Mike sent me your podcast, and I wanted to just get like a feel for your podcast and the way you speak and stuff. And so I think you brought up in the podcast, you believe in, or somebody you were speaking to. Oh man, what's his name? I think his name was Gatsby.
Yeah,
I think he was an artist.
Yeah.
So he brought up something about shout out Gatsby. He brought up something about
shout out Gatsby.
Shout out.
GATZBY at Gatsby, at Real Gatsby on Instagram, Twitter, and YouTube as well. Check him out. He's a very talented, multifaceted artist. Anyway, back to your question.
Yeah, thanks, dude. So I think he brought up. He said, "I hate when people say it was meant to be, or this was always meant to be." Like when you tell me a story like this. I disagreed when I heard him on the podcast, respectfully. I'm not being a jerk, but I just disagreed to an extent. Because I hear like you have this crazy amount of hemoglobin in your blood, and you're able to recover, and now you deliver inspiration for people who are hurt and who are trying to get better. Mm-hmm. And it seems to me it's a little bit too perfect. Like if you didn't have that hemoglobin, like who knows what would have happened, that amount. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? I just feel like you're in service of people now, and maybe that was for a reason. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean?
It was written.
Maybe I don't know, but I like thinking about that. Yeah. That's something that I think is real to me.
Yeah, I like all the perspectives. I'm more of like a this is a fairy tale, this is a dream type thing.
Got you.
And some people, like Gatsby, is like a nihilist who believes, you know, and I'm not going to try to put his personal beliefs in like a sentence here, but that, you know, nihilism is like nothing matters, nothing really exists.
And I can see that too. I can totally understand where he's coming from.
It's just an interesting thing because I see it more like a mix between a video game and I guess what they say, like a simulation kind of.
Okay.
But to me, it's more of a lucid dream. I've studied a lot of ancient writings, and the Buddha said to his head disciple as he was passing, when he was asked, "How do we know everything that you know? How do we continue to carry your torch and inspire the way you've inspired? What have you not taught us that will help us get there, or this and that?" He goes, "There's nothing left to teach you." He goes, "What separated me was nothing. Like, we're all in the same place, in the same dimension and plane." He goes, "I simply woke up." And when you really analyze this simulation theory and you know, quantum theory and M theory and string theory and how there's parallel universes all superimposed on each other, and then in the quantum realm, everything's random until it's directed by some type of electromagnetic force, which can be created by our mind and our thoughts, and then things manifest into matter, and you start really recognizing synchronicity and when it's around you and start to play with it and start to recognize paradox and irony and realize that there's deeper lessons in that, and that, you know, these are all educational systems to teach us mastery in this puzzle that we're living in. It really does become, to a certain degree, like a dream that we're in this lucidly, and everybody to a different degree, just like our dreams at night. And I believe that's an educational system for what we're doing here. Whoa. And those who can really recognize true reality with the capital T and capital R are the ones that go to sleep knowing that dream state, as we know it, is teaching us the physics of the quantum realm, of these alternate universes where the physics are slightly different, right? Mm-hmm. And where certain things can't be concluded, like death can't happen, right? Mm-hmm. You can't die in your dream. You get to the point where you do, and then you wake up. Yeah. And think about that for a second. All of the mystics throughout time and history have talked about this resurrection that happens. You have to die. What is it? People become reborn Christians and all this different stuff. And there's the Masons, they go through a simulation of death process and a raising and all this stuff. We get baptized and we get christened and we get raised. It's a very interesting process. It's a matter of waking up to a higher consciousness, right? The Christians say reborn through Christ, through a Christ consciousness, through the consciousness that this being died for us, to atone for our sins in a way so that we could let go of the worldly things that we're trapped by, right? Our subconscious revolves around, we're regretting this and we're sad about this, and our mind gets distracted from the present moment. That reborn consciousness is waking up to the fact that we are not those things. We are not the things that happen to us. We are not the traumas that we believe we should carry with us. We are not the degrees we define ourselves by. We are not even the name that we were given on our birth certificate. That we are here just to wake up.
Got you.
And when we wake up, the reality starts to morph and form around you the way you will it to, because we become the awoken creator. Like the Buddha, like the Christ, like the shaman.
Man, the creator, that's the second time you mentioned that. That's a big deal. That's something I'm going to take away from this podcast for sure. What's better than being the creator, you said before. Now this is coming up again. Whoa, I don't know how to feel about that. I want to look into it more. That's how. Because we traveled this life so far. I've traveled this life with a name and things that I've been called or taught or told about myself that become identity. Mm-hmm. So I do travel with those things. I do act through that lens. So I can see how I'm not awoken yet.
Yeah,
for sure. Me too. To a higher.
Well, just being aware of those things is coming from a place of awakeness.
Right.
Yeah.
You're just pinpointing that perspective.
Right.
You're not necessarily stripping and getting rid of all of those things that you are. I'm not doing that to myself. There's things I'm defined by. I mean, it's the social media age. You have to be defined by a name. Right. And then behind that name comes images. Mm-hmm. And people can peer into whatever false reality you wish to show them or true reality you wish to show them. Wow. Depending on the degree you're okay with being judged, right? Sure. Those who show all the false reality really have issues with being judged. Those who show their purity don't really care about being judged at all. Therefore, they probably don't judge others.
Wow, this is
and
crazy.
That's shedding the external ego, right? All the definitions of self. It's just like, no, this is who my heart tells me to be. This is who I'm going to be. And there's no right way and there's no wrong way. It's just like we said earlier, like degrees of awakeness in a lucid dream. Mm-hmm. Right? Some people go to sleep every night. They don't remember their dreams. They don't experience anything. Yeah. Some people have dreams that are more vivid than this reality and there's more lessons they learn in those dreams than they do in a day of reality where they go to work all bored all day and then take a bus home miserable, pretending to sleep so they don't have to talk to anybody. Right. They get home, eat the same dinner they ate every other night. Like simulation.
Have you lived that life before? Have you experienced that kind of life before? Were you?
Yeah, I mean, a little bit experimenting. Yeah, I was a mover. I was a janitor. I was a soccer referee. I was an intern for a big gym brand in New York City and Manhattan. So it was like corporate shirt, tie, and all that stuff.
Same. And I remember doing the 9 to 5 in the city too for a while. I told you about this. Yeah, and everything. Acting is like my passion. It's the thing that makes me go.
Nice.
It's my flying.
Nice.
Mm-hmm. Podcast. That's how.
I'm getting into acting now too. I just met with a first assistant director who's a good childhood friend yesterday. Dude. My cousin gets married in a few weeks, and all of the people in the wedding, worked on Dunkirk, that new movie Dunkirk. Wow. So my cousin was the art director for that. Eric Osusky, you can look him up, and his soon-to-be father-in-law was a producer, and I think that's where the meeting happened. So that was cool. Awesome. Yeah, shout out Derek Peterson, a good friend. Childhood buddy. Is a brilliant kid, always has been. Like we were always the two stoners in all the honors classes, like just kicking butt without trying. We actually were discussing that yesterday because the time that both he and I scored the best on the SATs, we had smoked a blunt in his car, or a bowl in his car right before the SATs. I'm not going to say which high school and where because I don't know how legal that is, but and then we both did really great. Like we got the scores we were going for, and that was the last time we had to take them. So it was a very ironic thing. And now we were in the city just hanging out. We were in Brooklyn at this place, Brooklyn Crab, which is a really good place right on the water there. And one of my other buddies who I just introduced to Derek is a stunt guy. Like he's a professional stunt guy in Hong Kong for 10 years. Now he's coming over here and he's going to get him into like the Marvel movies and all that stuff and all that and TV shows. So I set those two up, and then I was just, kind of listening on conversation. And every person at the table was a Hollywood, like, a New York film person, but Hollywood, you know what I mean? Like small world. And I just said to Derek, I was like, it's funny. I'm actually like reaching out to people and agents and casting directors and stuff about getting in things. Sure. And I was like, I'm not asking you to set me up with things and like get me a role, like, Jeremy Renner or anything. I'm not like asking for that. Like, just put me in the spotlight and see what happens. Like, but I was like, if you could ever get me extra stuff, and he was like, dude, that's easy. Like, no problem. So as I start to get stuff, I'll put you in touch. And I got a few actors in my life, but hopefully I make a good impression dancing out at this wedding. And they're like, next Dunkirk's coming. We need you. There's a dance scene. So that would be cool for acting. Dude. But man. Yeah. So go on. I'm sorry. You're saying, and you're really into acting. And
So that's my passion. That's what drives me. And I remember doing the 9 to 5 in the city. I was working for a high-end fashion company, And I was basically like changing light bulbs in their showrooms, like facilitating things and getting people what they needed. And I remember the bus rides there and how terrible I felt and how the world seemed to have this tint of like Bukowski, like black and white. And I remember I had an exchange in the elevator with somebody. I didn't realize I was kind of losing myself in this process, but I had this exchange with this woman in the elevator. When she came in, I remember my face went like this. It was like just a little smirk, right? And I was like, why the fuck am I smiling like that? I never ever do that. I wasn't provoked to smile. I did it out of like a courtesy, and she did the same smile, and we never made eye contact. And I realized like I was losing who I was to this job or this process of living. Yeah. And again, it is written, maybe not thing that I kind of get, maybe not, but I believe it a little bit for this reason. I would go home to my girlfriend at the time, she's my wife now, and I would say, I would cry. I would just break down. I'd say like, this isn't for me. I feel terrible. I can't keep doing this. I want to act. And I said, okay, in the summer, stop working there, start a new chapter of your life. Like, I believe in you. You could do this. Great. 2 weeks later, I get the call. We're outsourcing your entire department. So here's your severance. You can still work here if you want, just under a new company. And I was like, thank you so much. I'm going to take this severance as a sign, like, to continue whatever thread I'm being pulled on to this thing I love. Yeah. And I've just trusted that ever since. And it's really, so far, so good. Yeah. Not steered me wrong. And my life is vibrant, you know?
And that's how your health gets vibrant too, because, and that's where a lot of people's health ailments are coming from is, it's funny, I'm going to mention depression because I just saw this a couple times, people throwing these memes around, and who knows if like Matthew McConaughey or Jim Carrey are actually saying these like statements that are going around the internet attached to their pictures. Right. But one said, Jim Carrey said that depression is just your avatar telling you that you're on the wrong path.
Oh, I've heard something like this. Yes.
Kind of essentially. And that's under the simulation, or this is a dream, right? With the Buddha saying, I simply woke up. His avatar, right? Or his projected higher consciousness or absolute consciousness, we all have. And for some miraculous method or reason that this being Siddhartha Gautama, that became the Buddha, made all the right decisions in life and practices and disciplines and trained himself, that he and his avatar became one. Right. And woke up, and this reality became just a playground that anything was possible. It was a dream that he could then morph. Jesus, as they know Jesus Christ, was born that way, right? Same thing, the avatar, full state. So when we stray from the path that our avatar knows we're supposed to be, that's where physical illness happens. That's where depression happens. That's where anxiety happens. Because imagine as a 13-year-old kid going through puberty, all of the sudden your clothes came off of you in the middle of school and showed up 20 feet away from you in the wrong place. Two things that were meant to be together and fused, right? And one just disappears. How would you feel?
Oh, wow.
That's what we feel with depression and anxiety and physical sickness, right? And illness and physical, right? And it's the same concept. It's like, no, those clothes belong on us. We need to be awoken to our avatar self, our higher self, like right away. We need to go into kindergarten, and a teacher needs to sit us down and it needs to be like, there is a you that exists in a dimension that we can't see with our physical bodies that is perfect. And you need to always remember when you're feeling like you're not perfect, that perfect part of you is trying to help this you become perfect, and let that happen. Don't block it.
Right.
Imagine we all grew up with that. There would be no depression. There would be no anxiety.
Yeah, man. I love the idea of opening the channel like that. Allowing yourself to be open to whatever is going to pull you into that perfect being.
And we have to conceptualize it like your clothes are off right now, like, and you're in public, and remember feeling like how if somebody said hi to you at 13 in school, you're like, I don't know how to react to that. I feel all weird. Like, imagine your clothes are off in front of everybody. That feeling, that's what our depression is.
Yeah.
But as adults, we then have a filter of, I'm too old for this. I'm too cool. Like, I'll deal with it myself.
Right. Yep. Right. Yes. Absolutely.
We have that pride filter.
Yeah.
That's a big thing that I kind of get from you is because you're so open and like I know you want to be in the moment, you know? And you want to get something from someone else in the moment,
right?
And I see like you get emotional about things, you know.
Sure.
And I'm very like, you know me. I'm I keep it all in.
You getting better.
But I feel like I'm getting like I want to be in the place that you are.
Right.
You know, where you're so open. Where I feel like it's similar to when you were working that job and you were feeling that, you know, like when you were in that elevator and like you wouldn't tell this lady how you were feeling, right?
No.
You know, we're trying to hide it.
Yeah.
But when you get home, like you let it all out.
Right.
I got that from you, and that's where I'm trying to grow in that aspect.
Got you. Yeah, man. Yeah. I think he's giving great advice today.
Oh, for sure.
This has been.
Yeah.
They did talk in the elevator. They both said they hated their lives.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's true.
True.
It's very true.
All behavior. That was all behavior. Yes. Absolutely. Didn't have no vulnerable connection whatsoever. Was miserable. Couldn't even say it.
Well, it's smart for getting out. Good intuition.
Yeah, it happened for me.
Good girlfriend.
Yeah. The best. Yeah. Mikey, you brought up something to me, a question. I don't know if you wanted to go through that today. Sure. You why don't you kick it off? Because you introduced me to the question. You sent it to me today on a message about what Tobin had said on a podcast.
Yeah. So with the last podcast you were talking about, you were talking about heaven. Like you kind of just sprang that up out of nowhere. You know, I feel like it's such a great question to ask.
Great question.
It's like we were talking about because I sent you like, it's a good one for us to think about. You know, before we talk.
Yeah.
And you actually had, right?
I do. Can I ask you? I'm taking your podcast. I'm hijacking.
You talked about it a little bit, but I want to go a little deeper.
This is the You Are Here Art of Flying podcast.
Collab.
So, what is heaven? I guess, do you believe in heaven? And what is heaven to you? What is heaven to you?
So this is interesting. It can be a very complex answer, but I'm going to try to answer it very simply.
Mm-hmm. Cool.
I genuinely believe that in 2003, when I was in the car accident, that I died. And this is weird to say to external consciousness because you guys are living your reality.
Yeah.
So for me to say that this is heaven, you're going to look at all of the struggles you've been through and all of the pain that you suffer and wonder why that happened if this is heaven. But that goes back to a couple minutes ago when we said those are things that we are holding on to that don't allow us to experience true reality.
Gotcha.
Remember?
Yes.
Because I've had this conversation with people, and some people will argue with me over my perception of reality, and I'm like, that's not fair.
Yeah.
Because I'm not in any way judging or telling you how you should perceive reality. Mm-hmm. So I feel I died in 2003, and this is all a dream that's like a transition into heaven.
Right.
And that's why I feel like when I speak to people and they're like, you have so much insight and wisdom and you know so much, I'm like, but I don't feel I do. But because of that, I'm like, I must have woken up somehow and started to gain all this, and it's flowing through me.
Gotcha.
And it's all kind of because I believe that it's not reality and that time is suppressing me to not knowing these things, or like I've never felt, I guess, since my accident, restrictions. Like everybody, I have to study these subjects and I have to do this job and I have to form this reality around myself. I never did that.
Yeah.
And I just have this perspective. It's not mine. It's not something I chose. I'm just sitting in it where I believe right here is heaven.
Yeah.
I believe we wake up every day to birds singing songs. I live on a lake in the middle of a mountain in a forest that's billions of years old that grows fresh blueberries, raspberries, cherries, fruits of all sorts, every herb you can think of that can heal any ailments. Like, I experience a very interesting paradoxical synchronicity every day that I go to work and I'm helping people heal from exactly what I've gone through. Like physically, like you said, it seems too planned. Like, it doesn't, so it doesn't make sense for me because the world I was in before was chaotic and there didn't seem like there was a meaning to anything. And then I woke up in this world where like everything is aligned perfect. And like I imagine the perfect woman for me and she shows up in my life like a day later and is like wildly interested in me. And I'm like, what the fuck is happening right now? Like, I'm like, I need a new car and this is the car I want. And like, it just happens like a week later. And like, it's just so weird. I don't know. It's heaven. This is heaven. And you can perceive it as purgatory. You can perceive it as hell. You can perceive it as nothing. You can perceive it as everything. You can become a billionaire if you want. You can become homeless if you want. And they're pretty much the same amount of decisions that lead you to everything.
Yeah.
And like I said earlier, it's like a dream or a video game mixed with like this simulation. There surely is a higher realm.
Right.
The 9th, 10th, 11th dimension in this 12-dimensional grid that we access 3 to 4 dimensions of. Why do we keep coming back here? Why are we not satisfied with that higher place if that's heaven, right? We leave our body, we go to this place that's been known as heaven or Shangri-La or whatever it may be, another planet, another star system. We just wake up and that's where we were projecting consciousness from into these, like bodies that are at the same time like holograms. You know what I mean? They're flesh holograms. They're just complex cars that have combined with computers in the future, and they were thrown back on Earth like a few thousand years ago. And who the hell knows? Or a few million years ago. It's not even a big time span in the universe's sense. So wherever we're projecting from, that clearly is not the place that we want to be. We are incarnating here to experience through physical senses. So this is the heaven that we must be wanting to get to when we're in what we think is heaven here, because we've had our memories erased when we came into our bodies. So when we can perceive it that way, it starts to form that way. But when we perceive it as earth life and there's going to be struggle and there's going to be bills and there's going to be crap and there's going to be this and this shit. Yeah, there's going to be those things, but it's how you perceive it. Like if you come here knowing that those were meant to teach you lessons, how you can make this heaven on earth, you're aiming for heaven on earth. But if you think you're just experiencing those things as your earthly experience, that's what you're aiming for.
Yeah, my God. Because when you because I feel like I thought about it. I'm like, yeah, when you ask them about like, well, what's heaven? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, even in religious sense and all that, it's a place where there's no wrong.
Right.
You know, in like a general way.
Right.
And that can only ever happen inside of the individual consciousness, and then the outside world is going to reflect all that.
Yeah.
If you're dishonest, you're going to constantly run into dishonest people.
Yeah.
You know, if you're full of love, you're going to constantly run into people that are full of love and that are looking to share their love with people. Like it just happens. And I've done experiments. When you're the easiest way, when you're reclusive, you're not going to see anybody.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like what we wish to happen on this earth is going to happen. It's just a matter of how many patterns did we pick up throughout our lifetime, how much trauma are we holding on to, and are we filtering our pure reality, that childhood innocence, through that and restricting ourselves from experiencing heaven here right now. So I ask people that for a reason, because I believe this is heaven. And I just want to see in people's answers why they're holding themselves back from experiencing that.
Wow.
That's beautiful.
Wow.
I love that.
Did you have an answer for your heaven?
Mine was, well, I heard that. I'm like, maybe,
I know.
Maybe it's changed a little bit.
I'm going to give you mine anyway, but go ahead.
The first thing I thought of is I didn't want to go like super, I wanted to like think of a simple answer for it because I feel like it's such a loaded question.
Yeah, for sure.
So I just felt like it'd be, I guess in that like kind of more traditional sense of like after death or something. because normally that's like after death you go to heaven or hell. I thought it'd be
for the Catholics.
Yes, Catholic, I guess that's how it's taught. So, I guess it'd be seeing the people that were very close to me, and I can see them again. Yeah. And being able to be with all the people that I love. And that's how I simplify it.
Word up. I like that too.
Yeah. And what was yours?
This is simple too.
But it's funny because you asked yourself this before.
So I was journaling. I journal. Keep an actor's journal, and I just journaled this on the 26th of May. I don't know why, but I wrote, "I'm back on Bretter Court." That's where I'm from. In Elmo Park. Shout out Elmo Park. Laying on top of that black double-sided skate ramp. I'm exactly the age and size I am right at this moment. This was a month from 29. And the stars are as vibrant and full as I've ever seen them. And there's a smell of pine cones and the hint of grandma's cooking from the kitchen window. And I'm perfectly present and in awe. And every so often, a person that I love comes and lays next to me in my arms. And we're together for however long we would like to be. And maybe that's my heaven. So to me, that was like a snapshot of what I would like heaven to be. That's where I felt that peace and like in awe. Really at peace.
But I guess that really is where you are now, though.
Right. Exactly. So I was just going to say, so that's after what you just brought us through, that could be my life right now. Heaven could be now.
Or just is.
Yeah.
Because could be puts it right over there.
That's right? How I know, man. Damn. That's how I speak. Fuck.
And just to comment on Mike's a little bit, real quick. I stepped into mentioning those other dimensions, right? So humans are not stupid. We make stupid decisions, but our philosophies that carry over thousands of years, stupid stuff doesn't continue to get tossed down that ladder. It gets tossed out usually every 100 years or so ago, or that go by. But things that remain the same is wisdom. It's that underlying knowledge and truth that we've extracted from this universe we live in, right? So Catholics are a significant population of this world. There are things that they believe that might be confused, might be misinterpreted, just like anybody else that conforms to the thoughts of others as a mass. But for all those billions of people to believe that there is an afterlife of heaven, hell, purgatory, and these things and these levels, and there's been artists in mystical times that have drawn them in deep detail, like Dante and things like that, and brilliant minds that we respect in other aspects, like Da Vinci and Newton, who we respect everything they say, have also spoken of these things, and like how could we discredit that, right? So this heaven, hell, purgatory, these things are some of those other dimensions that we can go to. And there's, if you really go into the science of it, which some of the Theosophical Society does and some of the modern government does, and they've all correlated because they've discovered things like in a Stranger Things type experimental way, and then they've referenced these old mystical books from hundreds of years ago and realized that they were talking about the same things, that not only are there all these other dimensions and planes of reality that Einstein spoke about and that all these physicists spoke about and developed, like E equals MC squared does not just tell you energy equals mass times acceleration squared. It breaks down into principles beyond that and sub-laws that tell you how that affects the universe. And what that means is that there are concentrations and these waves of reality, like circles, that all intertwine each other like those Russian dolls and stuff. And those are the planes of dimension that we live on, and that we as human mammals with sentient minds vibrate existentially between the third and fourth dimension, approaching that fifth vibrational frequency, and that there's up to 12 on this planet potentially. So what we perceive as heaven and hell are higher and lower vibrations of reality, or sub-levels, subsets. So each of those levels has a sub-level or a upper level, which I believe the ancient mystics, and this is in Sanskrit, called lokas, Lokas, and Talas, Talas. And they were like these higher level vibrations of these bigger level vibrations and stuff. So to believe it's heaven, you see all these people, loved ones that you like, they are vibrating in a valid reality, because the law of conservation of energy states that no energy, nothing, no matter can be created nor destroyed. It just changes form.
Right.
There's a finite amount of life, of matter, or light matter in this universe that can manifest at any given time. So if something dies, something is going to be born, and that's just how the universe works. It's always shifting where the energy is and how it goes. It never disappears. So if there was consciousness attached to these beings that are no longer attached to their bodies, that's resonating somewhere. And there are mystical ways of perceiving them in this reality that we live in. Some people, these like seers, like a John Edwards guy or whatever, like they fucking see him and like they talk to him. Like, could you imagine that was your life all the time? But like, shit, man, I believe it because I've perceived things that are quantified, and there's no way that like it didn't happen with other witnesses and stuff. And we know exactly what it means, like when it happened, like certain birds showing up at a certain spot and like not leaving right after your father passes away or something. Like there's serious shit that goes down. And then you look that up, and like anciently, like your loved ones will show up through cardinals and stuff like this and do weird things. And it's just like, all right, this has been in our history for hundreds, if not thousands of years. These are valid things. And that's why, and they used to say birds, the language of the birds was the original language, and it was an angelic language.
Whoa.
And there is a complex language to birds, and they seem to, like I've always felt since I was a kid, when you hear that in the springtime, when they start coming out, it's like a symphony. They're the reason that plants wake up.
What the fuck?
Because plants respond to music. Think about that. We know this now. So I feel like the birds waking up in the spring having that symphony directly preludes the plants waking up, and these it's all connected through this. So there's a lot going on that we see every day that we don't necessarily understand. So seeing and perceiving your loved ones is just a matter of knowing that they're always here. That they never disappeared. They are just not in their same physical form. And you've got to figure out the ways that they're getting through to you, and then just learn the patterns. If your phone rang every single day, but nobody ever taught you what a phone was, you would just think that your house has an annoying sound every once in a while. And then one day somebody tells you, you pick that thing up, and you pick it up, and it's your uncle in Poland who you haven't talked to in 20 years.
Damn. Open the channel, dude. Open the channel.
I appreciate that, man. That makes...
Wow.
Yeah, thank you for that.
And I'm not telling you you're somebody standing here talking to me. I don't believe in that either. I believe if somebody is going to experience something, they should experience it authentically. So I give you the keys, and you figure out what avenues they're talking to you through, and then start listening and talking back.
I've definitely had things happen,
You don't have to pay me any money for that. You don't have to buy my DVD on the way out. Just connect. Because it's good for the whole universe.
Sure. I was asking Mike before, man, because you train people. And Mike was trained by you at one point. I was wondering, like, because you have your own company, you have your own business.
Shout out Temple Kinesis.
Thank you.
Temple Kinesis. How do we plug Temple Kinesis?
At Kinesis, pretty much anywhere. Facebook,
I'll plug
Instagram, Twitter.
The descriptions and everything.
Yep, you can go to Temple Kinesis YouTube. I have a new site that just went up. It's Kinesis Power. So it's QI, like Chi Energy, QINESIS Power, POWER.com. And you can download workouts up there. Awesome. Since I own the gym, we had over at least 500 plus workouts that I've recorded, and written down. So I have the first 100 on an ebook right now. You could buy an actual physical book if you want, so you could have it as a resource. So say you travel a lot. You go to a gym, but it's like a Retro Fitness or an LA Fitness where like you kind of do your own thing, bring these workouts with you. Awesome. Most of them are 20 minutes and less, but they'll give you more than most 2-hour workouts will give you. I've learned, all this stuff over 20 years of my athletic career, and then 10 years, at least 10 years in the fitness industry. And I owned a gym, the Temple itself, which you can see videos of online. for 6.5, 7 years. And I still continue programs all over with partnerships with nonprofits now. Right. But we don't have our own brick and mortar space. So this is what I was doing. I was converting everything over to digital. Mm-hmm. What I will have is this custom specialized subscription only page on my YouTube. Mm-hmm. So if somebody wants to buy into that, it will be a monthly subscription, very low rate. But any workouts you have, if you don't understand certain moves, I will be posting all of the physical movements up there, showing you corrections, throwing people where they may injure themselves or falter and what they should be mindful of. And at some point, I'm sure I'll be throwing specialized, nutrition tips and philosophical stuff and mindset tips and things that we've been talking about on here, meditations, pranayamic stuff, breathing enhancers. That will all go on the subscription page. A lot of that stuff is on my general page now too, but I'm going to be giving the mystical secrets, basically, serious stuff, what I call wizard's diet stuff, basically, on the subscription page. But some of the workouts will be up there for free too. I'm going to put a shopping list, what I call the Wizard's Diet Mindful Shopping List, which has a list of all of the foods that you should essentially be buying at some point at the grocery market. And if it's not on that list, just don't buy it. It's not worth it. It's not good for you. It's not an investment in your future. Don't do it, because there's all types of shopping lists and people will tell you, oh, you can have a handful of this or a handful of that. I don't put that shit on my list. It's stupid. If you want people to be happy, tell them, listen, you can eat whatever you want, but don't tell them eating a certain amount of chocolate every week is going to be good for their health. When you know it's not. You just want them to be happy and buy your shit. And that's nonsense. That's letting people down. That's misguiding people, misleading people. So I have this list. It's 4 pages long, and it tells you a little bit of portion control and what you should be doing. And then there's going to be a lot of other free stuff to come with that, but it's all available online, kinesispower.com. Right. Every couple of weeks, you're going to see a new set of 100 workouts up there. And last thing I'm going to say is I also have a resource book. It's going to become a personal trainer certification of sorts, but I essentially put my entire college education into this. I don't want to say it's, a couple hundred pages only, but it's my entire college education in kinesiology, exercise science, nutrition, psychology, philosophy. There's some business administration stuff in that part, and it's comprehensive. It goes over what I believe is a coherent and kind of dot-connected way of teaching this stuff, instead of breaking it up into all these different college courses that are stretched out over semesters at an hour and a piece. I just tried to compact everything from a 4-year education plus, all these other areas that were involved with my major that I took classes outside of my major. And I just wanted to pack it in these books. So you can buy an ebook version for cheaper, or you can buy a physical book version. And these are life resources. Right. I actually called them, it came up to me one day. I commented on somebody's Instagram thing one time, and I was like, wow, that's the name for my books. And it's called Cookbook for Happiness, and this is the fitness edition. Okay. So if you guys want it, check it out, Cookbook for Happiness. Sure. If you go on the website, you can see a preview, 10, 15 pages, so you can get an idea of, what's going to be in it and a little bit of the content itself. So it goes over everything of definitions of all the vitamins and what they do for the human body, to every exercise, basically. I do, I think I did 16 different exercises and then 8 different styles of those exercises. Wow. So you go into push-ups, but you go into modified push-ups for people that have to scale. Then we go into plyometric push-ups. Then we go into weighted push-ups of sorts. And it's very comprehensive. I didn't want to leave any future for anybody to bullshit anybody about limitation, right? Because that's what the fitness industry is about. If you do Pilates, it's just Pilates. If you do yoga, it's just yoga. If you do CrossFit, it's just CrossFit. If you do this, is no. I'm going to offer everybody everything. Here's everything you need to know. I've put a little information about fencing in there, a little bit about this, a little bit about that. So every person that reads this will get a full comprehensive grasp of what fitness on planet Earth is about. Right. This is the fitness book for aliens. They come to Earth. This is the fitness book that you want to read. And then if you want to learn anything extra, you go and study that from some master in that. I'm not here to tell you I'm a master of everything. Gateway. It's the gateway. I want to give everybody the gateway. I'm sure as years go on, it gets more popular. We'll develop 1,000 pages from every page I wrote in this book. But for now, I just want to get it to people. Yeah. I think a typical book, a textbook, college book, is like $200-300 now. Yeah. I think you could get this hardcover. I have it up there for $99. Gotcha. And it's going to, it's just hundreds of pages of everything you would ever need. And you could rub stuff in your college professor's face when they're not speaking properly and coming correct. And that was kind of my goal with it. So that's what the brand's transformed into. Thank you. Yeah. And we do have a lot of programs. Just look up on my website, tobinosusky.com. And I always have live stuff going on too.
For sure. Awesome, yeah. And we'll link everything down below. So if you guys want to check it out, you got a quick link to it.
And just show you an active life requires this. These guys were very courteous and they gave me these little baby drinks here. But I stopped being a toddler about 30-something years ago.
I got to get on the water game too, man.
You got to step up your water game. Me too.
Man. All right. I saw one more thing I want to talk about is to ask if you...
Yeah, please.
This is one thing you bring up a lot. Is the I think it's quantum entanglement.
Oh yeah, did you investigate that one a bit?
What would you like to know?
From what you did, because you would always bring it up.
I get hyped about the things I love about acting is this. There's a moment we're sharing right now, a relationship's being shared, and it's our moment. It's living and dying at the same time it's happening. It's solely ours, and I love that. And I believe that. It's kind of like you walk into a room, you meet somebody, and automatically, I don't know if it's a spiritual thing, I don't know what it is, but I feel drawn to people sometimes that I can't describe why. And so this quantum entanglement theory, the little itty bitty things that I picked up on were, if you believe in the Big Bang, there's a set amount of particles, molecules in the universe, and they were all bound together really, really tightly. And they were brothers and sisters, and they knew each other intimately, and then they exploded and they went everywhere. But some of these molecules exist still, and so if there's a part of a molecule in my arm that knows intimately a part of Michael's neck molecule, then that quantum entanglement theory is saying that we were connected at one point, and that's why we are drawn to each other, because our molecules are attracted to each other or they know each other. So that's just kind of a theory that I picked up a little bit on, very little bit on, but I just like the idea of it. I don't know if it's true or not, but there does seem to be a pull. Maybe it's an enlightenment thing. Maybe some people have have awoken to some degree,
or they're at the same level.
That's right.
That's a kind of thing that spans all of life. That like finds like, right? You don't see zebras and rhinos mating.
Right.
A lot of them.
Right.
Yeah, when you think about that.
Yeah.
We like to define ourselves as humans as like really important things.
Yeah.
Right.
Quantum entanglement is a modern way of explaining that interconnectivity that for thousands of years humans have been trying to find all these ways of separating ourselves from each other. Okay. And quantum entanglement is the first theory in modern times that is trying to tell us that we're not separate.
Right.
That we all stem from the same source, code, or physical happening, whatever you wish to say. So we could go really deep right now if we want, but let's keep it kind of simple.
Yeah.
That, we're essentially those molecules that you were talking about is in your arm and in his neck, but like the arm and the neck is like our planet or our solar system.
Yeah.
That are just cells in the body of something much, much greater than we could ever conceptualize, because our egos are telling us that we're like the coolest, biggest like center, which we kind of are. Like maybe we are cosmically at that middle level between the quantum, like super microscopic, beyond microscopic molecules and like, multiverses.
Gotcha.
And we're as humans like that middle point.
Yeah.
And that's why we have such sentience and conscientiousness and consciousness developing. But at the end of the day, we're not even that original piece that ruptured and broke apart.
Okay.
We're whatever preceded that.
Okay.
If we want to define ourselves by something, and then all of that space that's happened in between, like you just said, we could find each other or something.
Right.
We have this recognition and this stuff. yeah, absolutely. We're just floating dust particles through space. But at the end of the day, all of us came from the same source.
Right.
So, and then back to what you said, we could all just be at different levels.
Right.
And that's what it comes down to,
Gotcha.
too. So you'll walk into a room, and this quantum entanglement theory that you're understanding now, you recognize somebody, you're like, oh, man, we must be connected somehow. Absolutely. You're connected to everybody in that room, but your intuition, right? Your knowing beyond your physical senses tells you that this being specifically is on your level right now. So like finds like, right? And then that we could kind of sub in right now the Hindus' idea of reincarnation and what I said about zebras and rhinos before. That they believe based on your karma that you'll reincarnate in a body appropriate. And it could be a beast, it could be a human, it could be a planet, it could be whatever. If all of these things have consciousness, right? So you might be an unconscious human. Say we're all in that room, right? And I'm in this lifetime, like very unconscious. And you two are on the same level. You guys meet each other and you vibrate, right? And I was meant to vibrate back into that based on that original explosion that happened so that the universe can retrace or like rebuild the puzzle. But I wasn't on that level this lifetime. This is how it works out to be funny. I wasn't on the level as a human. And this is the Hindu idea of it. This is not what I believe necessarily. This is the Hindu idea just to show us the different whys about this quantum entanglement and why you vibrate towards a specific person. So I may then in the next lifetime, and we're all moving in these soul circles basically because our consciousness kind of always stays together even though it resonates at different levels. So I would then reincarnate as your pet dog and you two are a couple in the next life. And you guys learn to love me so much that like maybe you're about to break up and like I'm the reason you decide to stay together. And it allows me the karma then to resonate at a higher frequency. In the next lifetime, we all find each other and we're like a band.
Got you. Oh, this is so sick.
Isn't that interesting?
Yeah.
But like we couldn't be a band in the lifetime before because I was a dog and I was a dog.
Right. Oh, this is crazy. Whoa, it's so cool to think about that.
I just want to like research everything, man.
I remember I had a friend, shout out Hamel Amin. He grew up down the block from me and he kind of introduced me to this. I was a kid, but I remember I ran away from it. He told me that we're like his belief was that we were reincarnated. And I remember I got so scared and I was like, well, then I'll never see the people I love, right? Or they go somewhere else or they're different and then I didn't realize if that is it. This vibration thing where we're the same, the consciousness is the same. We recognize each other or we share a life together again, just different ways. But I remember running away from it. I was terrified. I got really scared. He was, the way he said it was like, there was no reason to fear dying, but I was super afraid when I heard that. You know what I mean? Yeah. I was just too young, I think.
And I feel like if somebody says there's no reason to fear dying, like they might try to kill you a moment after.
Yeah, just pulls out a
just come here.
Yeah.
I feel like 9 times out of 10, if somebody says that, like in a conversation, they're coming to kill you.
I gotta go home, man. I gotta go get dinner. My mom's calling me.
Like if you're in a conversation about the fear of dying, then it's appropriate to say. But like if you're just randomly like talking, you're like, you have no reason to fear dying right now. Like I would run. I would get the hell out of there very quickly.
Dude, it was weird. I don't know how it came up. But
like if a girl says that on a date with me, like I'm going to the bathroom and sneaking out the window.
Yeah, none of that, please. None of that. No more of that. Yeah, dude.
Well done.
What are we at?
We're good. Yeah.
We're clear. What do we get to?
Man.
Oh wow. Okay.
You guys have anything else?
Oh man.
Any last questions?
I'll ask you one more question.
Keep going.
I'll let you go. But I want it to be a good one.
Oh, I wanted to ask about.
Come on, bro.
Sorry. All right, my bad.
No.
I thought you were thinking.
No.
Keep them coming. I'm fine.
I thought you were you're talking about meditation. Have you tried meditation before?
Yeah, I have.
I have never been able to really
meditate.
I guess that might say some stuff about me. I don't know how, but
same.
Well, you either don't have a brain, which is great.
Yeah.
That's the goal of most meditators, is to just clear the thing.
Yeah.
Or
how has meditation? Because I feel like it's helped you. You were talking about in a way.
Well, I'm not a huge meditator. It's very interesting. I think people ask, when do you meditate? I believe I'm always meditating. I studied a lot of Kung Fu, and Kung Fu says it's a moving meditation, and yoga is like a moving, kind of static meditation. But at the end of the day, in an hour, you're going through a full flow of exercises. So if we time lapse it, you're moving a lot. And then there's monks and stuff that just do static meditation, sitting and stillness, which is, a very cool thing too. Stillness and silence is like the universe before anything was created. So we were talking about that Big Bang thing. Like what was right before that was like the calmest Buddha universe ever.
Right. Right.
And that's what we're all trying to get back to through meditation, interestingly. But I don't really sit down and like meditate. I do occasionally, but it's not a daily thing. I'm a breather, and I was kind of forced into meditation after my accident because I couldn't do anything physically, and my mind was destroyed. Like I had severe head trauma. I had no new memories I could form. So I was thrust into a place where I was just consciousness staring at a blank canvas brain that had all recognition of everything I had before, but I had nothing new coming in. So I wasn't overwhelmed at all. I could finally organize what was there and interpret. Whereas we go through life, and nowadays especially, like in 1800, all you would see is like a couple horses, a couple cows, like fucking birds flying over, your family members. Like that's all your senses had to interpret. Now we hear radios in the background, and we see TVs, and we look at cell phones and 50 different apps, and we're on 100 different websites. We're watching podcasts. We're watching TV shows. The brain has no time to process all of that. So obviously that's why meditation is so sought after and needed now. But I didn't have that. Like my mind couldn't even store new memories. So I could have this conversation. I could watch a podcast and not remember any of it.
Right.
So then I would have to just deal with what I had already and organize it and store it. And that's really all meditation does, is it takes all of that shit that you've input, every one of these posters that's sitting there in this fucking thing. You're like, why am I seeing Iron Maiden when I'm trying to think about fucking physics right now? Like, what the fuck? Because it's just cluttered.
Yeah.
It's like you went into your bedroom and you took all of the clothes out of every drawer and every closet, threw it in the middle of the floor, forgot about it, and came back a day later and was like, what the fuck am I going to do with this? Like, you would struggle so much to even start cleaning that. But once you started, sooner or later, everything's back to where it came from. You're like, man, I can't let it get dirty like that again.
Right.
And that's meditation in a nutshell, is just try to clean up what's there. Don't try to do anything fancy. Just go into your mind, and when a thought comes up, recognize that it's a thought and it's not you, and just make a decision. Do I want to keep this, or do I want to get rid of this? And visualize yourself doing it. Be like, no, that thought came from self-doubt. Like, your podcast isn't ever going to get heard by anybody worth listening. Like, what the fuck? Why did I think that? Like, no, I'll throw you out. Get back. And then you can replace it right away with consciousness, or you can let another thought come. But I would like to replace that one with consciousness. Man, my podcast is going to get heard by Oprah or Ellen. She's going to bring me on a show and be like, your podcast is dope. I want to ask you a heaven question. Like, that's a new thought. And that just replaced the old one. And when say that other thought comes up in the past, which it probably won't. And that's the cool thing with meditation, is like, if you find an old sock with a hole in it, you throw it in the garbage, it doesn't miraculously show up back in your drawer, does it? It's the same thing with meditation. That's why life teaches us about the mind, and the mind teaches us about life. Same patterns work. So we throw that thought out, and then we consciously replace it with a new sock. That new sock's going to show up next time.
Yeah.
And that's how it works. So if you have 100,000 thoughts a day, and then your first time meditating, you can recognize one thought, one negative thought, and eliminate it from your consciousness, you've succeeded.
Yeah.
Because you've developed a pattern, right? This is the first time you shot a basketball, and you probably sucked. And then you shot it and you made it, and you're like, wait a second. And then you start figuring out in your mind and your body, what can I replicate so that I can make it again? And then what happens? You take 1,000 shots. Now out of 10, you're making 5 out of 10. You take 10,000 shots. Now out of 10, you're making 8 out of 10. Because you get better the more you do it. And just try to eliminate one thought at a time. Based on what I went through, my meditation is, and I spoke about it in that interview with Billy Keenan, is the nothing or no thing meditation, because that's where my brain was. I was at that point of clarity, just cleared out. Like in the Matrix, the first time he gets put into the machine, it's just a big giant white room. That was my mind after the accident. So I can always get back there now because I've been there. I know how to get there. It's like driving home without a GPS. You always know how to get home. Getting someplace new is tough. But once you get to someplace new, you can always just, I can get home from here. I can reverse that. It's easy enough. If I'm within 30 miles of my house, I'm going to recognize something. I'm going to get my ass home. It's the same thing with that. So my thing is the nothing meditation, because no thing technically is a thing. Think about that for a second. Nothing, the word nothing, one word, breaks down to 2 words, no thing. That's its definition. Right. Nothing means no thing. Right. But it in itself becomes a thing because we have a definition for it.
Right, okay.
So I just focus on that over and over again, and then your mind can only focus on no thing. So there's no actual physical thing that it can focus on. It just clears itself right away. It's like a magic eraser.
God.
It's like instead of erasing a whole paper that you wrote that was wrong, you just burnt it.
Okay. Whoa, bro.
I feel like we're slowly meditating all day, in a way.
Yeah.
But it's so slow that, like, we always deal with a thought, and then like we either like dumb thought, we get rid of it or not. But it's like slower. So I feel like it's better if you do sit down
and consciously do it.
Yeah.
Absolutely, because it trains that system of unconsciousness to do it better for you.
For sure.
Yeah.
For sure.
Right now, we're like born riding with training wheels. And when you figure out how to take them off, you don't need them anymore. And that's what you just said. It's like, no, I'm going to practice riding my fucking bike instead of just looking like an idiot on training wheels all the time. Like, I'm 14 already.
Dave doesn't have training wheels. Why do I still have training?
Yeah,
dude, no.
What do you got?
So you mentioned acting before. I'm just curious. What is it about acting that is driving you to want to do it? Like, how'd you find it, and what is it about it?
So I've always had it in my mind since I was a kid, probably. I've always loved film and that. But what I've also always had in my mind is that I didn't want to just do this right away. And it's ironic, all the experiences I've had since, like, normal people would be like, oh, I'm like 18, like, let me go to some acting shit and let me go to acting school and this and that. And I'm like, no, like, I want to be the old guy. Like, I want to be the dude that has scars and is rugged and, like, you can see has life experience. Like, I love Danny Trejo, who plays Machete and every character in every movie that's ever been made. He's like Samuel L. Jackson for Mexicans. You know what I mean? And if he's not Mexican, I'm sorry, Danny, but you're in all Mexican movies, so it's your fault. But, like, that look. Like, I always wanted that. Like, somebody... You respect those people more. Sure. They're also less likely to fuck up, in a sense. Like, I had a lot of friends that got famous young, like child stars kind of, and they're great people, but they haven't done anything with themselves. Sure. And it just it hurts you. And we see how many, like, Britney Spears and Justin Bieber's, like, really struggling through their late teens and early 20s with this. So to me, as a logical person, it was just undesirable.
Yeah.
I wouldn't ever want to do that to anybody I cared about, let alone myself. And I care about myself. I had opportunities. I had talent. I was working with a lot of musicians back in my early 20s, and I could have done that too, like kind of hip hop, kind of whatever variation we were going to do. But there was something that was just telling me, like, dude, you're just not ready for it. Like, you will party too much. You will go too crazy. Like, you'll be one of those, like, true Hollywood stories instead of, like, a fucking Forbes story or a Nobel Prize story or something. And I realized I had a different purpose. You know, my father had gotten sick, and I came back to this area after college, and it was all ego-based, and it was all... isolated fitness. Like all the fitness companies wanted to just offer what they offered and not anything else. Right. And they were like, it was like creating the MLB of fitness practitioners. Like everybody wanted to be a Yankees fan or a Boston fan or a LA right. fan or a Houston fan, and nobody would talk to each other. Like they literally like grill each other at bars, be like, your philosophy's stupid, your philosophy's stupid. So I was like, man, I need to open up a place that just offers everything.
Right.
And we did. And that was 7 years ago. If you look at all the fitness companies in North Jersey now, they all offer everything.
Right.
So I did my job.
Yeah.
I did my job with that. And we inspired and influenced literally every fitness brand in North Jersey, probably a lot of New York City too. And now I can transform. And that's kind of leading me to this point is, wow, looking back, this is the time I want to get into acting and I want to get into music and some of the other things I'm doing, because if and when I make it to a big time role, somebody sees me as an extra in something and they're like, I like that guy, to give me a little speaking role, that leads to a bigger speaking role, and all of a sudden Vinny Chase, I'm in a Scorsese movie.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like this is how life happens, and it happens quick. Mm-hmm. And you got to be ready for it, because opportunities come to people every day and they let them whiz by. And for years, I thought I was intentionally letting them whiz by, and I'm like, no, I was just justifying it as I wasn't ready yet, which is a good justification.
Sure.
Most people don't do that, and I feel grateful for that early wisdom. But I'm so grateful that I waited and I built multiple companies. I built Temple Kinesis and literally helped heal tens of thousands of people directly and hundreds of thousands or millions indirectly by influencing these other brands to change their bullshit, basically.
Right.
And I built the High Nature Kids, a clothing company based around Ringwood, this town I'm from, which is like an ancient mystical town that still has, shout out Ringwood, which still has tons of Native Americans, the Ramapo tribe, and we're specifically the Turtle Clan in Ringwood, where we're from, and Mawa is the Deer Clan, and there's big clans all over. They just got federal recognition. Wow. They're getting everything back. Yeah, Chief Man is a friend. Like, if you guys can support the Ramapo tribe, get out there and support the Ramapo tribe. Sure. They have a powwow every year in Ringwood at Sally Fields. I think it's in early September, like second week of September. You guys should go. It's super dope. Sure, drum circles, there's chanting, there's all the native stores. Really cool. And so there's just a lot of stuff going on right now. And I think the acting and the music, because we have a lot of musicians in town. There's Joan the Phoenix. There's Garrett Gardner. There's there's so many bands. I'm gonna leave Garrett, out.
He came to my job to do the open mics that we have.
Yeah,
and I was like, this is crazy.
He goes everywhere and like so talented. These people, and there's so many bands. Like there's Danny Key's band. I'm forgetting the name right now. Green Knuckle Band.
Yeah.
And there's Jay Thubes, who's like a guitar shredding master, and there's Christina Vincent, and there's so many people, guys. There's so many like soon to be world famous musicians coming out of Ringwood, and this is just the time. Like speaking of synchronicity and alignment, I've studied these industries for years. I've always wanted to do acting. I just knew I wanted to be older, and all of the sudden, when I decide internally that like I'm ready for this. My cousin's a superstar in LA and Hollywood. One of my best friends from childhood, this kid Derek, who I was with, is like a stud, and he's just like a really good guy and comes from a good family, and like it's my second family. Like we all grew up in a tribe in Ringwood together, and I love all his brothers, and I love his mom and his dad and his son, and like everybody's family. And I have a few other people that are in the industry that are like so connected. I have a good friend who's a makeup artist for big television hosts and stuff like that. Right. And she knows all the agents and everything. And it's just one of the guys I worked with hip hop in probably 2006, 2007. We were all just getting started in our lives. And he's now the like entertainment attorney to every new rapper and producer that's coming up in the industry, and it's just killing it. Shout out to Navarro doing his thing over there, and got a building named after him in Hackensack now, the Gray Building. So like really killing it, and probably got keys to cities all over the place. But a lot of people just set up. So I'm like, now's the time, because not only can I do this to get myself out there and it's a lucrative career, and we all know that when you make it, and there's really good money in it, and longevity if you're smart and you go the right avenues and know the right people and treat people right. but at the same time, we can get all these stories out, these stories of consciousness, and these stories of healing, and these stories of Native American redemption and civil rights, and these stories of protecting the land from big corrupt corporations who have no problem dumping hundreds of millions of gallons of toxic shit where watershed property is that feeds millions of people water for profit as well. So there's issues happening all around the world that are also concentrated in the area we're from that these platforms will allow us to get to. So the acting thing is like, it's a passion. People, you're good on camera, you're good speaking, you're good with your words, you emote and stuff. Great. These are natural things that can be trained. I've had mine trained through a lifetime of struggle and trying to figure out how to adapt to that. But more than getting myself out there and developing, just another aspect of my career and my legacy is getting these stories out and these ideas and these concepts that the world is for some reason being withheld from. And to influence the cultural consciousness or the collective consciousness in such a way that people don't feel like they're restricted in life anymore. They don't feel like they're on earth born into hell and that they have no opportunity to change it. And I'm just a drop in the bucket. I'm nobody special saying like, you can make your dreams come true and you could do this. People have been saying this since like Walt Disney to Russell Simmons, Jay-Z, everybody in between. Like I was just in Brooklyn yesterday and Jay-Z comes from this place that like everybody was like, why are you going to Brooklyn? Why are you going to Brooklyn? Even nowadays, 2019, with so much buildup, everybody still looks down on it. And I just want to say to them, and I don't want to be redundant about being a kid from the hip hop generation, but like, Jay-Z's a fucking billionaire. And he came from like a project in Brooklyn, not even just a random house in Brooklyn. Like, big. And who are you talking shit about Brooklyn? Where did you start and where did you get to? So like, this is just an interesting place where I want people to know, and I guess I have specific experience in healing and building my dreams and stuff like that, and an interesting perspective. But with all of this, with acting, if we get out there and somehow God graces us and we're standing at an award show on some red carpet one day with some fancy outfits on, I hope that I still have it within myself that when somebody asks, what have you been up to lately? I bring up something pertinent and helpful to the area that I come from or an area that needs some help, and I don't make it about myself. But there's nothing wrong with that. People can do anything they want in life for any reason they want. I would do this acting thing like you just asked because the platform it would give me to help the people that I have in my life that I care about.
Got you.
Yeah.
Sure. God, I wish you luck.
That gives me big vibes with like recently Nipsey Hussle passing.
Yeah.
Like the things he'd do like
for
his community. Giving that. And
he was an inspiration for me over the years. A lot of the decisions I made in my business, I based off a lot of things he was doing. Wow. I read about him first when he put his one of his first mixtapes out, and it was brilliant. And he did this crowdfunding or CrowdRise thing, and it was just absolutely brilliant. And he got the attention of Jay-Z, ironically, who I was just talking about, and a few other heavy hitters after being a relatively unknown person just from I think he was from Crenshaw, I want to say. Crenshaw. And he probably, like anybody, was selling his mixtapes to everybody in his hood and they thought he was the next big thing, but like that happens everywhere all the time. And then he just made this move and he read a book that I was reading at the time, and I saw in an interview with like Forbes or something, I think it was Forbes, that he had read this book too, and I was like, dope, I'm on the right track. And then he wrote or said what he read from the book and how it led him to come up with this idea. Wow. And it was all about essentially your value, your self-value, and people will pay for perceived value, like in the art world. So what he did was he made 1,000 copies of his first mixtape. That's all he was making.
Right.
And he said for $10 a piece, he was only making 1,000 of them. He did this crowdfunding thing. Like you had to buy it ahead of time. You couldn't hear it before. He offered different incentives for different people that were investing. And he sold all 1,000. So he made, it was.
He sold them for 100.
He sold them for 100 and it was 1,000. So he made $100,000 off of that. And he said, I'm doing this because I don't want to sign with a major label. if I get $100,000, I can produce and distribute my first album.
Whoa.
So he caught the attention of Jay-Z for saying that. And Jay-Z, I think, bought 100 of those 1,000 copies that he made. So Jay-Z dropped $10,000 because he thought it was a good investment in this guy. And looks what it turned out to be. Like, you know, horrible that he passed in the way that he passed. But sometimes we need martyrs. You know, I would probably go the same way because of certain platforms you get to. Like, people just don't want to hear you talking. And, like, it was so interesting, like, no disrespect to his life or his death or anything that happened since, but like right after he got shot, so many people were saying it was like the medical industry hired a hitman, and so many people were saying it was big corporations. Like, dude, I talk shit about these big corporations all the time. I don't talk shit, I just state facts that they've done. He did the same thing. So everybody was saying it was big medicine because he was coming out with that documentary with Dr. Sebi that like cured cancer, AIDS, diabetes, like everything through nutrition, through alkaline bloodstream stuff. And it's so valid, like it's legit valid. Like I said it earlier, you can heal anything on this planet through proper nutrition, breathing, meditation, exercise, few other things, sunlight, and yeah, man, it's crazy. But you almost need us to die in order to wake everybody else up, because it's not like he started saying something different after he died. People weren't listening though. So you need beings like Nipsey or myself to rise up to a point where y'all will start listening, and then somebody needs to come along and kill us so you memorialize us. And they martyr us in a way, and you guys like go back and listen to everything that I was saying over the years and Nipsey was saying over the years, and make memes of that shit. And it's a good thing, because again, we're going back to this existential layers of reality thing, but there is no death. The law of conservation of energy tells us that, like, he's just moving on. Like he's now cosmic, and look at immediately when he died where his influence went. That was his power as a conscious being. Like he knew, in my world, in my body, I can only influence so many people. He died and influenced 10 times as many, if not 1,000 times as many. People were talking Nipsey Hussle that never heard of Nipsey Hussle before. I'll be honest, I had heard of Nipsey Hussle, and I had studied his moves and his ways, and I respected his character and his method. I did not listen to a single song of his until after he passed away. I'll be completely honest. So like, think about that. And I've listened to more than one, and I've listened to him multiple times because I want him to get his streams up. I even started a Pandora station, but that's interesting, is that needs to happen almost. So like, this is a profound conversation. Like, unfortunately, the value won't be derived from it until we're dead, or I'm dead. And it just happens that way. And you know, it is what it is.
It does.
But as long as you think about multi-dimensions, you're all right.
That's it.
That's
it. And I'll come back and I'll like, I'll haunt your podcast. You'll be like, yo, I swear I heard Toby's voice in that one.
He's here.
But yeah, man, like Nipsey killed it. And that was such a smart idea, because 1,000 albums, $100 a piece. And then you get the biggest person in your industry in the world recognizing. So it's all about strategy.
That's a big swing, and he hit.
Well, dang, we're going on pretty long. I think it's a great time to end it up.
Let me do a shout out real quick before we wrap it. Sure. Nick Craven, Ricardo Burgos, I promised them I'd shout out their podcast that's coming out, Actors on Actors, or the Actors Podcast. It is the Actors Podcast. Check that out when it comes out.
Big shout out. Also a big shout out to Tobin right here. Listen to the Art of Flying.
Thank you.
Kinesispower.com.
Kinesispower.com. TobinOsusky.com. Flying Tobin across all networks. And the Art of Flying podcast. I think you guys will get a lot out of that.
Yeah, for sure. We got a lot out of it too.
Loved it.
It was amazing. All right, we're gonna wrap it up. So thank you guys so much for listening. This is Mike. You can find the podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Podbean, YouTube, www.yourherepodcast.co. Couldn't afford the M. I'm Mike. I'm signing out.
And I'm David. I love y'all.
And I'm Tobin. Ringwood forever.
I'll see you on that 12th dimension.
Power.